Hey guys, Flaushy here. The video I'm bringing you today will cover some of the tips I can share with you that I learned while climbing the ladder. Tip number 1. Aim or mechanics. One of the first things you need to know and learn is definitely mechanics. Mechanics are very important in Overwatch. Of course you don't need to have godlike aim like some pro players, but you definitely should be able to aim on any hero. For this you should first of all try out a sensitivity in practice range. You want your sensitivity slow enough so you can follow a target without going further than it. But it should still be fast enough so you can turn at least 180 degrees without having to lift your mouse. After finding the right sensitivity to your liking, you still need to practice a lot. You won't be a good gamer because of his sensitivity, you still need a lot of practice for muscle memory. So what should you do if you're really bad at aiming? What's your goal then? Overwatch is such a diverse game that you don't need to be good at aiming, at least not from the get-go. There are tanks and supports that don't need aim as much as some other heroes like Widowmaker. For Winston, for example, you don't need to be as good at aiming, but the mechanics for Winston are landing his jumps right, using your bubble, and using the edge of it to avoid damage, which is called bubble dancing. Or even his ultimate needs some mechanical skill, since it's hard to juggle people around and kill them properly. Or Ryan, for example, hitting fire strikes and earth shatter when it's the right time. With the whole Ryan mind game there is, it's very hard to actually do it on a proper level. Or Mura and Mercy don't need as much aim for playing them well. Even Junkrat if you like DPS. So the first step for you should be to decide whether you want to practice aim, or if you aren't confident, if you should just practice non-FPS heroes and their mechanics. Tip number 2. Something that is very important is positioning. What I see people do in bronze is, for example, hold in the attacker spawn. You will get overrun at some point by the attackers, and it won't work in higher ranks. So where do you defend? Right on point? No. Rarely you do that. What you want is to set up on high ground, or at least be able to contest it somehow. Having Soldier on high ground with nothing contesting him is an almost instant win condition. You also should know that your positioning changes depending on what role you play. If you're a tank, you want to be in front of your supports in DPS. If you dive, you want to take a spot where you can jump to, either your supports or onto the enemy dive target. Sometimes being out of position can lose you fights, or games, and even if you are more mechanical skilled than the other team, having your Zen run into the front line, or have him be way too far in the back so you can't help him, makes you lose fights. Same for tanks and DPS, you never want to be overextending and dying. In Overwatch, getting the first pick is normally an instant win, except for if the enemy teams get a good ult or a lot of ults out. Tip number 3. Another very important aspect is shot calling. I already made an entire guide regarding shot calling for in a team and in matchmaking. I'd advise you to definitely watch that. Shot calling is something that anyone can do, but most of the times it's either a tank or a healer. His job is to give a team an idea on what they need to do. It can be as simple as saying group up and go top left and use nanovisor, to calling out more complicated strats like I want you to target Zen Tracer. Make him use his trans so he can use Blade next fight. You also say stuff like fight's lost, don't use any more ults, or die on card. Swap to Mei and stall into overtime. If you want to be a good shot caller, you should be seeing yourself as the in-game leader and tell your team what to do. Having a game plan is good. Try to always be positive as well. Tilting won't bring you anywhere. Tip number 4. Something you should definitely learn is how to 1v1 heroes. Winning those duels can win games. You want to learn how you 1v1 an enemy with the hero you play. So that means what you want to learn is 27 different hero duels. Meaning every single hero you 1v1, you need to know when to use what ability counters the enemy's abilities, and most importantly, if you're at an advantage in that 1v1 or not. For example, Junkrat vs Pharah is very clear. A personal tip for this is that you try and learn every single hero to a good degree, where you have enough knowledge about how to 1v1 every hero with every hero. This can take up to hours, but is worth the practice. Knowing what to do as a Lucio when fighting someone, even if it's running away, I personally would recommend to practice this in a 1v1 mode where you can choose the heroes, so you don't end up mirroring all the time. But I'd also like you to practice heroes in quick play or comp, since you get multiple hero matchups, and you learn how to utilize the map properly, meaning utilizing health packs for example in the 1v1, or if you are a character that can boop off enemies, how you use cliffs or high grounds, or whatever possibility you can think of. Something that comes to my mind immediately is, how do I use the jump pad on Oasis to fight the enemy I'm 1v1ing? You guys probably can remember, back in the day when the game came out, people loved on Volskaya, on second point, to use the platforms with their McCree ult, or with a Torbjorn turret, or ult up there, or even a Bastion, because it's just something that you can do in this specific map. Tip number 5. Hero pool is something important. If you want to rank up high and become really good, you normally want to become very good at one single hero. And this is the right way to approach it. But there's one big problem with this. In matchmaking, you will never get to play one single hero. And only playing one single hero is not going to be enough sometimes. Only playing Lucio might be bad if you need a Zenyatta. This is simply how the game works, and also the reason why people don't like one-tricks. I'd recommend you try to reach new heights or ranks with one hero, and then try to get your heroes to subpar. Also try and learn multiple heroes in your role and out of your role. You will never be able to perfectly play any hero at the best level, so try and practice multiple heroes and get them onto a level that you can fill and fight against actual people who main that hero on that rank. I would recommend learning at least 2 heroes for every category. You can start actually one-tricking if you reach the Overwatch League or Contenders. Tip number 6. As already mentioned previously, knowing when to use your cooldowns is very important for 1v1s, but it's also important to know what abilities to counter other ultimates or abilities. For example, Ana's Bionate counters Zenyatta's Trance, so keeping this ability in your pocket when you know he has Trance can open the window for your Genji to use Dragon Blade anyways. Also, for example, knowing when the enemies used Hook on Roadhog and you can move in. Knowing how long the cooldowns are. All this information is very important to know. You don't need to know what cooldowns are actually on cooldown at every single point in the game, but for example, if you see a Roadhog flank or a Roadhog being overextended and you know he used his heal ability, take a breather, if you call that out to your team and you can focus him down, it's way easier to kill him. Tip number 7. The last part to know is ultimates. Ultimates are very important, and they can completely decide fights. For ultimates, you want to know which ultimate counters which ability counters which. You want to get a feeling when people have their ultimates. Comparing the enemies to yours by looking at how much your player on that hero did, and how much the enemies did. Seeing someone on fire indicates that they might be very close to an ult if they haven't just used it. Knowing what ults to combo is also important. Graph plus Pulse Bomb, for example, and also how to bait ultimates. Playing very aggressive onto the Zen, so he uses Trance early and your Genji can then blade. Also, you rarely want to use more than 2, maximum 3 ults in a single fight, because most of the times the enemies will have the same amount of ults. For example, a strategy on 2CP is to farm up 6 ults and stomp the defenders with that, since you are planning on that 6 ult fight to be your last fight. Guys, thanks for watching this video with my personal tips that I learned over the time on how to rank up. When you watch this video, I want you guys to not only just listen to what I say, but I want you to actually think about the game. I personally think that learning the game was the most fun part about it. Also, keep an eye out for more videos in this series, as I will try and help you to rank up. Thanks for watching.